Long ago, in a forest where silence was broken only by the cries of wild birds and the rustle of the wind, there lived a tigress. She had given birth to 3 cubs, but was terribly weak and starving. Her ribs pressed against her skin, and her eyes burned with both hunger and despair. In this same forest, 3 royal brothers, sons of King Mahasattva, wandered in search of wisdom and truth. They were noble, compassionate, and trained in the teachings of kindness toward all beings. One day the brothers stumbled upon the tigress lying helplessly on the ground, her cubs crying weakly at her side. The eldest brother said with sorrow, "This tigress is too weak to hunt. If she does not eat, both she and her cubs will perish." The second brother nodded, adding, "But who can help her? No animal would willingly offer itself to be her food." The youngest brother, Prince Mahasattva, gazed at the tigress with tears in his eyes. Unlike his brothers, he felt a deeper stirring within his heart. For him, compassion was not just a lesson, it was a truth that demanded action. Seeing the tigress in such misery planted a seed of resolve in his mind, one that would soon grow into the most selfless act of sacrifice. Here, the story begins, not of power, not of wealth, but of boundless compassion that transcends the fear of death itself. The tigress lay beneath a tree, her breathing shallow, her strength fading, her cubs pressed against her side, mewling with hunger. She looked at them helplessly, unable to stand, unable to hunt. The forest was alive with deer, boar, and birds, yet all seemed beyond her reach. Her maternal instinct burned fiercely, but hunger had consumed her mind. At times, she even thought of devouring her own cubs, a terrible choice born of desperation. She growled in anguish, torn between instinct and love. Prince Mahasattva watched quietly. His heart trembled. If she dies, he thought, so will her cubs. And if she devours them, their innocent lives will be lost. The weight of this dilemma pressed upon him like a mountain. Yet, in that heaviness, he saw clarity. The tigress was not an enemy. She was a mother, fighting for survival, just like any human mother would. Hunger had stripped her dignity, but not her soul. The eldest brother pulled Mahasattva aside. "We cannot interfere with the ways of nature," he cautioned. "Let us leave." The second agreed reluctantly, believing nothing could be done, but Mahasattva's heart refused silence. "If compassion ends where fear begins," he whispered, "then it is no true compassion." His gaze returned to the tigress, her eyes hollow, her body trembling. In her suffering, he saw a mirror of humanity's own struggles, pain, desperation, and the longing for love. At that moment, the seed of sacrifice within him began to bloom. The 3 princes walked away from the tigress, but Mahasattva's steps grew slower until he finally stopped. His brothers noticed and turned back. "Why do you linger?" the eldest asked. Mahasattva looked at them with calm eyes. "I cannot bear to let her die like this. Her life and the lives of her cubs matter as much as ours." The eldest shook his head. "Brother, this is folly. Nature is cruel. It is not our place to interfere." The second brother added, "And even if we wished to, what could we possibly offer? We are unarmed and empty-handed." Mahasattva spoke firmly, his voice carrying the weight of his conviction. "I have something more powerful than weapons or food. I have this body, and it can sustain her." His brothers gasped, horrified. "You would throw away your life? For a beast? For a creature that might not even survive the night?" Mahasattva's expression did not falter. Compassion must know no boundaries, human, animal, or otherwise. "If my death can bring life, then it is not a loss, but a gift." The eldest brother tried to dissuade him, warning that their father, the king, would grieve. The second begged him to reconsider, reminding him of his royal duties. But Mahasattva's resolve had already solidified. To him, the measure of life was not in years lived, but in love given. And love, in its purest form, required no conditions, only sacrifice. As his brothers pleaded, Mahasattva's thoughts drifted inward. He remembered the teachings of the sages, that all beings share the same desire, to live, to love, to be free from suffering. What difference was there between a starving tigress and a hungry child? Between her cubs and his own people? The answer was clear, none. He turned to his brothers and gently said, "Do not mourn for me when I am gone. Rejoice instead, for today I am given the chance to live the truth of compassion." His words carried both serenity and fire. the calmness of acceptance and the intensity of devotion. His brothers stood in silence, tears welling in their eyes. They saw in him something they could not yet embrace, the courage to surrender completely. Mahasattva walked back toward the tigress. Each step echoed like a drumbeat of destiny. The air seemed to grow still, the forest holding its breath. Even the birds ceased their songs, as if nature itself paused to witness what was about to unfold. He looked upon the tigress once more, her body trembling, her cubs crying, and he whispered, almost like a prayer, "Mother Tigress, may this body of mine ease your suffering. May it give you strength to care for your children. May this act sow seeds of compassion that will one day bloom across the world." With this, Mahasattva embraced his destiny. Mahasattva climbed a nearby cliff that overlooked the tigress's den. He wanted to give himself fully, without hesitation, without regret. From this height, there would be no turning back. His brothers, realizing his intent, cried out in anguish, "Brother, stop! You will destroy yourself." But Mahasattva only smiled gently. A body is but a vessel. Its true worth lies in how it is used. Today, mine shall become a bridge between despair and hope. The wind brushed against his face, cool and gentle, as though nature itself blessed his resolve. He closed his eyes, visualizing the tigress and her cubs. Instead of fear, his heart overflowed with love. Then, without another word, he leapt. The fall seemed eternal, as though time slowed to honor his sacrifice. His body struck the ground before the tigress, and the sound echoed through the forest. His brothers collapsed in grief, their cries swallowed by the silence of destiny. The tigress raised her head weakly. For a moment she hesitated, sensing the warmth of the gift before her. Then instinct overcame hesitation and she consumed his body. Life returned to her and strength flowed through her veins. With this strength, she nursed her cubs once more. Mahasattva's death was not an end, but a continuation, a spark igniting the eternal flame of compassion. His sacrifice transformed despair into survival, sorrow into hope. And thus, his body became food, but his spirit became eternal. The eldest and second brothers rushed to the place where Mahasattva had fallen. Their hearts broke at the sight of their beloved sibling's absence. They wept bitterly, torn between admiration and sorrow. Why did he not listen? The eldest cried, "Why must compassion demand such a terrible price?" The second brother placed his hand on the ground, where traces of Mahasattva's sacrifice remained. His voice trembled. Perhaps compassion demands not a price, but a gift. He gave himself freely, not out of duty, but out of love. As they grieved, they saw the tigress, now strong enough to stand. She licked her cubs tenderly, their cries now softened into contentment. For the first time, the brothers saw not a beast, but a mother, full of the same love their own mother had once given them. In that moment, their sorrow began to shift into understanding. Mahasattva had not abandoned them. He had shown them a truth too profound for words. His sacrifice was not just for the tigress, but for all who would one day hear his story. The brothers returned to the palace, carrying the weight of both grief and revelation. When they spoke of what had happened, their tale spread across the kingdom. Some wept at the tragedy, others marveled at the bravery. But all were touched by the depth of compassion one human heart could hold. Mahasattva was gone, but his spirit began to live within every soul who heard his story. When the two brothers told their father, King Mahasattva, about their youngest son's sacrifice, the court fell into silence. The king's heart shattered, yet he also felt a deep, solemn pride. He gave his life, the king whispered, not for glory, not for conquest, but for compassion. Such love is greater than any crown. The ministers and nobles were astonished. Some questioned his choice, calling it madness. But the wise among them recognized its power. Mahasattva's act was not weakness. It was strength of the highest order. Word spread beyond the palace walls, into villages, towns, and faraway lands. Farmers spoke of him around fires. Mothers told their children the tale as they tucked them into bed. Wanderers carried the story along trade routes, until it became a legend remembered across generations. To many, Mahasattva became a symbol that life's true worth is not measured by possessions, but by the love we share. His leap into the tigress's den became more than an act of sacrifice. It became a metaphor for surrendering ego, for offering oneself wholly to the service of others. The king ordered that a great stupa be built in his son's honor, a place where people could gather, pray, and remember. Yet even greater than stone monuments was the monument carved into human hearts. The lesson that compassion, even when it demands sacrifice, is the greatest force in the world. The tale of Mahasattva, the compassionate prince, did not fade with time. Instead, it grew into one of the Jataka stories, ancient accounts of the Buddha's past lives. For Mahasattva, who would one day be reborn as Siddhartha Gautama, this act was a step upon the path to enlightenment. His sacrifice symbolized a truth he would later teach as the Buddha, that suffering is universal, and compassion is the key to transcending it. By offering his body, he broke the chains of fear and self-preservation. In its place, he planted the seed of boundless love. Monks and teachers repeated the tale for centuries. Pilgrims carried it across mountains and seas. Artists carved it into stone reliefs, painted it onto temple walls, and sang it in hymns. Each retelling reminded people that compassion is not passive. It is active, courageous, and often requires personal cost. Through this story, generations learned that the path to enlightenment is paved not with riches or rituals but with selfless love. Mahasattva's sacrifice was not only for the tigress and her cubs, but for all beings, showing the depth of commitment required to awaken the heart. Even today, the Hungry Tigress story continues to inspire. It reminds us that every act of kindness, no matter how small, carries within it the same spirit of compassion that moved Mahasattva to leap. In every sacrifice, no matter the scale, lies a spark of enlightenment waiting to bloom. What does the story of the Hungry Tigress teach us today? In a world filled with greed, conflict, and indifference, it speaks louder than ever. First, it teaches that compassion must go beyond sentiment. True compassion is not merely feeling pity, it is the courage to act, even when it costs us something. Mahasattva did not simply cry for the tigress. He gave her the one thing she needed most. Second, it reminds us of interconnectedness. The tigress's survival meant the survival of her cubs. In helping one, Mahasattva helped many. Likewise, when we act kindly toward one person, the ripple spreads across families, communities, and generations. Third, it challenges us to reconsider sacrifice. In modern life, sacrifice often feels like loss. But Mahasattva's act shows us that true sacrifice is an offering of love. When we give without expecting return, we do not diminish ourselves, we expand. Lastly, the story teaches that even in death, love can triumph. Though Mahasattva's body perished, his spirit became eternal, carried in the hearts of those who retold his story. For us, the lesson is clear. Compassion is not limited by time or culture. It is a universal language, a bridge that connects all beings. Each day, in small choices, sharing, forgiving, helping, we can embody the same spirit that led Mahasattva to his leap. In a world hungering for kindness, his story is not just history. It is a call to action. As the sun sets over the ancient forest where the tigress once lay, her story and the story of the compassionate prince still echoes. It is more than legend. It is a flame that refuses to be extinguished. Mahasattva's leap was not merely into the tigress's den, it was into the heart of humanity. His sacrifice reminds us that compassion is the highest form of courage. To love so deeply that fear vanishes, to give so wholly that self dissolves, that is the essence of enlightenment. Every time we hear this tale, we are invited to leap in our own way. Perhaps not into the jaws of a tigress, but into the arms of a neighbor who needs help, into the struggles of the poor, into the loneliness of the forgotten. Each act of kindness, however small, is a reflection of Mahasattva's eternal flame. As long as his story is told, the world will never be without hope. His sacrifice proves that even in the face of death, love can create life. So, when you next encounter suffering, whether in the eyes of a friend, a stranger, or even an animal, remember the hungry tigress. Remember the prince who gave everything, not for glory, but for love. And may his story inspire you to leap, to give, and to ignite the flame of compassion within your own heart, an eternal fire that can light the path for generations to come.